of Governor of the state of Michigan, Jim Blanchard, join us now on the program. Good morning, Governor. How are you?
Good morning.
Now, after you hear, I'm sure you've been following this trial, and we'll talk about why you're coming on here in a minute. But I just wanted to get your reaction here to these 14 men who had been charged. 9 are going to face some type of penalty or some type of time in jail for their role. It's just this whole thing's just got to be super troubling for somebody who served as governor.
Well, of course it is. The whole mood today is so negative, and people feel justified in threatening someone's life or planning to kidnap them or whatever. Yeah, I haven't followed these trials in detail other than to say that when we were in COVID, the governor's taking tough steps. No one really knows what actually has to be done. It's a strange new world. People get all excited. Pretty soon they're running around the Capitol lawn with assault weapons, claiming they're there to protest the mask mandate, when indeed I don't think that was the real reason. It's terrible. It's just, it's another world. We should not tolerate it. On the other hand, you have to respect the juries and their decision. That's the process. Mm-hmm. We may or may not like it. I don't like it, but in this case, the results. But the fact is, we're in a different era now, and it's tragic.
Well, and you're going to be talking about that tonight as part of this new Dennis Muchmore Public Policy Series. You're going to be joining former Governor Rick Snyder, and at this event, you're going to be talking about fostering civility in public discourse because, as you mentioned, it seems to have gone awry.
Yes, it has. You can say, when did it really start? Well, it probably, in terms of Washington, it probably started in 1979 with the change in the complexion of some of the people in Congress who began demonizing the other party. And it's gotten worse, without a doubt. But I will say this, I was elected, a long time ago now, in 1983. I served 8 years. I served in Congress 8 years, ambassador. The mood was so much better. I got a very good transition from Governor William Milliken, Republican. He and I saw eye to eye on most things, I might add. During my time, my financial recovery program would not have passed without Republican State Senator Harry DeMasso. My program to create the Michigan Education Trust, our first tuition guarantee program in the United States, and still a great program, was helped enormously by Republican State Senator Bill Cederberg. When I was in Congress, when we worked to rescue Chrysler, we had a lot of support from Republicans. So those were the days when you could do that, when we could work together. Now, members of Congress are afraid to have Democrats are afraid to have a Republican co-sponsor of their bills for fear they'll be accused of selling out to the other party. And clearly the reverse is true. You see what's going on with poor Kevin McCarthy now in Congress. He's got 5 or 6 people who are threatening to dethrone him as Speaker if he doesn't pursue an impeachment against Biden. I might say a matter that nobody believes is serious, but unfortunately it's going to be taken seriously by some.
But these political figures who have been elected, they represent the mood of the public, do they not?
Yeah, or a slice of it. I see. Okay. The problem is that between districts that are apportioned to be lopsided one party and social media, you end up with maybe 30% of the Republicans determining who's going to be their members of Congress. And that's more, in that sense, the right wing. The same is somewhat true of the Democrats, but we have a very diverse party. The Republicans no longer have a diverse party. They do not, and that's a difference in the country right now. And so it's a sliver of the Republican Party that's controlling poor Kevin McCarthy. That's what it is.
Do you think
so? All these people like Mitt Romney, can you imagine Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney no longer being welcome in the Republican Party? It's tragic. And by the way, Governor Snyder has been caught. He's a man without a party, basically. He ended up endorsing Joe Biden. And I think before that, even Hillary. So he's a man without a party, and yet he he won. He won in the Republican primary. There was a split in a lot of votes, and he won that. And when they expanded Medicaid, and they expanded Medicaid in Michigan to cover 680,000 people, new people, health care for all those people, 680,000, he was aided strongly by State Senator Gretchen Whitmer. That's an example of bipartisanship.
Do you think that we only got a couple seconds here? Yes or no, this is going to mean that Republicans are going to suffer some heavy electoral losses, you think, going forward for a while?
Well, I hope so, but there's no guarantee. You know, people have to follow things and be careful. And, you know, I guess my concern is I'm really tired of people saying they love America, but they don't
when
like
it comes
Americans.
to supporting.
Thank you very much, Jim Blanchard, editor of the MERS newsletter, filling in for Michael Patrick today. Tony Cuthbert on the other side of the glass. Today marks the beginning of the Dennis Muchmore Public Policy Series reception. We spoke earlier with former Governor Jim Blanchard. Let's bring in another speaker for this event today, former Governor Rick Snyder. Glad to have you back on the program, sir.
It's great to be with you, Kyle.
You got to be
forward to the event.
Yeah, you got to be pretty excited about this. You and Governor Blanchard are going to be talking a lot about one of your favorite subjects, and that's civility in politics. And where do you think we are right now in civility in politics? Are things getting better, or are they getting worse?
I hate to say it. I think they're getting worse. If you just look at the dialogue, the way people talk to each other, it's not a healthy thing, Kyle. I mean, as you said, this was a major issue for me when I was in office. So if you think about that, that was 5 years ago, and before that it was a problem. And the way I describe it is I believe the greatest threat to America is us and this lack of civility. We're the greatest country in the nation, and you can't maintain that status if you can't get along with yourself. So at some point, we need to become more positive. We need to understand we have differences, but we can work together.
It's just not the public officials. And this is kind of the chicken or the egg thing that I get back to. Are the politicians a reflection of the public, or is the public a reflection of the politicians?
It is a chicken or egg question. That's a good point. I think they reinforce one another with this lack of civility. I mean, one of the issues with the general public is I think social media, for all the wonderful things it brings and how it connects us in so many ways, has been a terrible thing with respect to civility. And the other one and again, it's not a reflection on media people themselves, Kyle, but I mean, too often people just watch media sources that reinforce what they already believe rather than trying to get a more balanced opinion or approach.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100% on that. I know that you're on LinkedIn. Do you tweet at all? Are you on Facebook? Are you on social media much?
I do LinkedIn primarily because it's business related, and I'm doing cybersecurity, and so that's a good forum to talk about really important issues and other issues that can affect the general population. I stay off of Twitter pretty much. I mean, that became so negative. I just didn't see the point.
Now, obviously, you haven't been in office for the last 5 years. Who do you see in politics right now that best represents kind of the civility that we're talking about here?
Well, I think a good example, if you go out west, we had, I believe it was the governor of Utah, and I'm blanking on the other, governor of Colorado. Actually, I believe they did a couple ads talking about one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, and they actually did a couple ads showing how they could work together and how they could respectfully disagree. I mean, that's the kind of role models we need to see, because part of the problem is we don't get to see examples of people working together versus, all the examples that people cover and talk about of people being negative.
That's really interesting. I hadn't heard of this, but now that I'm taking a look at Colorado politics, they are talking about Jared Polis and Spencer Cox, the new leaders of the National Governors Association, sitting down and doing this Disagree Better campaign.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful. I wish everybody would see that.
Well, I appreciate you flagging it for us. You mentioned that you're in cybersecurity right now. What are you doing now, business-wise?
Yeah, it was a passion of mine before because it's a huge threat to not just our citizens, but our nation and the world. And so I've got a young company with some great co-founders called Sensei, and we're focused in on small and medium-sized organizations. There's a huge cybersecurity industry for big companies out there that can afford expensive tools and bolt them together. but there's almost no one helping the places that don't have sophisticated IT in their organizations, and that's most companies and most governments, most nonprofits. And so we're doing well supporting those companies for a flat monthly fee. We're a wraparound service to help make them safer.
Sensei, is that right?
Yep, Sensei. Sensible Cyber is what it stands for. SENSCY.
CY. Okay, yeah, I gotta check that out. Are you still teaching or anything like that?
No, I'm primarily been doing cybersecurity, and then I am doing some efforts to help win the House back for the Republicans. They
yeah, that's right.
The House Republican Campaign Committee. So it's good, though, to try to find rational people to run for office. It's not an easy thing nowadays.
Are you doing the recruitment on that? Yeah, I got to believe it. Are you recruiting some people to try and run for the state house?
I'm not the lead effort on that. I'm primarily helping on fundraising, but I am talking to people when they want to understand what it's like to be a public official. And I'm always happy to share that because, again, there were a lot of cons, and we've talked about a number of those, how people come after you, but it's an honor to serve, and you have a chance to improve people's lives, and I'm proud of what I was able to do in my 8 years in office.
Are you finding it harder than you thought to raise money for the House Republican caucus?
No. Actually, it's going well.
Okay.
That process is going reasonably well because people are worried about Michigan's future. We're sliding backwards again, and we need to get going in a positive direction again.
Well, it's got to be frustrating to see some of the things that you worked on get repealed, like right to work, for example. I know that there are some abortion laws that are also being talked about, being repealed. How frustrating is that to see some of your work getting rolled back here?
Well, right to work being eliminated wasn't a good thing for Michigan. It sort of put that closed for business sign back up because it really opened up our pipeline of companies interested in coming to Michigan when we passed that. The other one that's a particular concern is when they eliminated accountability standards for education. Because I view it as you need to measure things if you want to know not that you're failing, but how you're succeeding. And so we need good accountability standards on our educational system.
I also wanted to get your opinion on this UAW strike that's going on right now. As you're watching these things break down, what is your perception? How are you viewing this?
Well, it's a concern, particularly for Michigan. So I view it more on a local level for our state because it's a huge part of our economy. So I hope they find common ground. I understand they both have good, strong points of view, and hopefully they can, again, use civility and find some way to come out with an answer that's a win for everybody. Win-wins are the way to go in the world, not win-loses.
Do you feel as if that this conflict here between the UAW and the motor companies, that it's a broader issue having to deal with just how much regular folks get paid as opposed to just something that's insular to just the auto industry?
I think it could reflect a bigger issue. One of the things I always recommend, and that was my focus when I was governor, is how do you grow the whole pie? Because one of the issues you get is, and that's one of the issues where you find a lack of civility, is when people are fighting over what their piece of the pie is, and you have it versus I have it, and vice versa, versus saying if you grow the economy, you create new economic opportunity that can be shared, and anything you can do to share with people at the lower end of the economic spectrum is a good thing.
It's so easy in today's world, especially with social media, like we mentioned, to pop off on someone or be insulting. We only got a minute left, but what kind of piece of advice would you give to individuals to try and dial it back and calm down and have a more civil discussion?
Well, it's back to the golden rule. Shouldn't you treat other people like you'd like them to treat you? I mean, this isn't rocket science. Nobody would like to be treated that way. Why should you treat somebody else that way? It doesn't make any sense. It's not a good thing.
Well, we appreciate you spending some time with us. And Governor Snyder is going to be at Oakland University with former Governor Blanchard today for the beginning of the Dennis Much More Public Policy Series. Appreciate you joining us here on Michigan's Big Show, Governor.
Great to be with you, Kyle. Excited to honor Dennis and be with Governor Blanchard.
You're listening to Michigan's Big Show, starring Michael Patrick Shields.